Hi, I'm Bob Weir with another interview of notable people in North Texas. My guest today is Senator Jane Nelson, who is notable throughout the state as a strong advocate for Republican conservative values. Thank you for being here, Senator.
Thank you. It's always fun to meet with you.
If you would begin by just giving us an idea of how large is your District 12?
Actually, we each represent, there are 31 senators, we each represent 1/31st of the Texas population. So because the population growth, we're up to about 900,000 people. Geographically, I have parts of Denton County up to the universities basically, and of Tarrant County, a lot of the suburbs. I actually have about a third of the city of Fort Worth, and then a lot of the suburbs between here and there.
Large district.
Yes.
Okay, would you tell our viewers something about the special session of the legislature? For example, what was done regarding property tax reform?
Yes. I wish I could tell you that a lot was done with property tax reform. I'd like to see our property taxes lowered.
Yeah, me
At
too.
least I'd like to keep them from increasing at the rate that they're increasing. Our governor called a special session to address that and other issues. If we don't complete our work in our 140 days that we're required to meet every other year by the Constitution, we go into special session if the governor calls one, and he did on several issues. Property tax reduction, control of property tax increases was one of the priorities, and we just couldn't agree. The Senate felt very strongly that we needed to have a plan to at least allow for citizen input. If property taxes grew over and the percentage was a variable there, we couldn't agree on what percentage, that the taxpayers at least would have a voice in whether or not to allow that great of a rate of increase.
Well-
and it was a meltdown. We just couldn't agree with the House.
Will it be readdressed at another session?
Has to be.
It has to be, right.
Has to be.
Okay.
I mean, I hear from constituents all the time, particularly our citizens who have reached a certain age and are on limited incomes, and their property taxes have grown to the point that it's costing them more than their homes.
Yeah, people should not have to be ejected from their home because
No.
of property tax.
No.
Well, of course, everybody wants to know about the taxes. That's one of the most important issues. Will our taxes be raised? So we're not just sure yet what's going to happen.
Well, Texas is blessed to live in, we are a very conservative state.
Sure.
We do not have a state income tax, and as long as I'm a senator, we will not have a state income tax. We do depend on sales tax and property tax to a great extent to pay for our needs. We need to look at different ways to adjust those. You know, our property taxes are a part of our school finance plan.
Sure,
I mean,
yeah.
it helps pay for our schools. And if you restructure to a significant point the adjustment of property taxes, you have to look at some other way to pay for your schools.
Pay for the schools, yeah.
And many of us, I'm one who I would trade. I would take a much greater sales tax to eliminate the property tax or significantly reduce
I
it.
think it's one of the best ways to tax people.
Yes.
Is to have a sales tax.
Yeah. And there are a lot of great arguments for that, but I won't go into all those
I
details.
know.
But I would make that trade. But if you're going to reduce property taxes significantly, you've got to figure out some other trade-off for that.
You recently sponsored legislation on domestic violence and sexual assault. Please tell us what's in the bill.
I actually have carried a number of bills over the
You have,
years
yeah.
dealing with sexual violence, sexual assault. My most recent actually was an idea that came from a constituent. I was shocked to learn that a parent who had been the victim of domestic violence, serious domestic violence, who was divorced, did not relinquish, the state still requires that the abuser has access to the child. And I didn't know that until a constituent told me. And one from right here in Denton County, in fact.
Right.
And so passed a law, had a lot, universal support for that. There weren't
Sure.
many who objected to that. But over the years, I have learned that women who are victims of domestic abuse are hesitant to talk about it. I think In fact, here recently, I think women have been much more likely to discuss a very uncomfortable topic. Back when I started, there weren't protective orders, there weren't, the laws dealing with sexual abusers were not, they were either non-existent or not very strong.
You had some of those as part of the bill, stalking and protective
Yes,
orders and
yes,
stuff.
yes.
Those are very important. Stalking is a very important one.
Oh, yeah, and when I came into the Senate, I was on the Criminal Justice Committee my first session, because it was such an important issue. And I found that women were more comfortable in talking to me about the need for protective orders. I mean, we had a woman whose former spouse had attacked her with a hammer, almost killed her, had a big dent in her head, and she could not, she would call the police and say, he's gonna kill me, and they said there's nothing we can do about it till after he does something.
Yeah,
Well,
that's the way it is. It has been for so long.
we've changed that.
That's-
We've now allowed women who are threatened to get protective orders. But women, I think, were much more comfortable in talking to me and even coming. I got some of them to finally agree to come and testify
Well-
before the Senate's Criminal Justice Committee.
Well, that's probably because I understand during your career in the Senate, you passed 27 bills to protect women from sexual assault, domestic abuse,
Yes.
including legislation recently to prevent women from being forced to co-parent with their rapist. What
That's
is
right.
that about?
That's right. That's what I was talking about earlier, that a constituent had contacted me and told me that her former spouse had raped her and was actually convicted of that. But she still had to allow access to their,
yeah, I see.
to their child.
Yeah.
And that's frightening to me.
Yeah.
So that was very bipartisan, bicameral
Yeah.
bill that we passed.
A lot of bills, a lot of important bills. Let me ask you this, what was the outcome of the so-called bathroom bill we've all heard so much about?
Yes,
you know?
yes. It was a very big issue during the regular session. The Senate passed a bill, and after literally, I think that was probably the longest hearing that we had people coming in every 2 minutes for 20 hours testifying on that bill. The Senate passed it, the House did not. That was one of the issues the governor called the special session for us to
Right.
address. We had another 20-hour hearing, and same result. The bill did not pass. There is a lot of misunderstanding about what that was about, and I think it's very, very important that people understand that this all started back when the Obama Department of Justice issued an order to Fort Worth Independent School District. They adopted some rules that when I heard about them, I didn't believe it. I actually got the Department of Justice directive order and read it. And you know, I'm a mom, I'm a grandparent, I was stunned. And let me say first of all that there are children, adults, who are, and it's a very small percentage of our population actually, that need to be accommodated in our schools. No doubt about it. The schools have been accommodating those children. Either a bathroom in the nurse's office, and every school dealt differently with it, but they were accommodated. This new directive not only said that whatever a child identified, whatever sex, the child gender, not sex, gender, identified internally, that is what we identified them as. And if a student wanted to enter a girl's bathroom and anatomically was a boy, they could do that. Also, in that same Department of Justice directive, they said showers, overnight field trips. If it was a school-sponsored high school overnight field trip and a young person identified as a girl and was anatomically a male, they could spend the night with the females. I was shocked, and
It's amazing, we would have never thought a few decades ago you'd ever be facing this kind
No.
of question in the first
No,
place. We
no.
wouldn't have even
I'll give
thought
you
about it.
one other example, because this is kind of, I was in our public testimony. I listened to the very heartfelt testimony. One person testified before our committee and actually argued that we should not label at all. We should, even at birth, not have male, female. California, by the way, does, has
Yeah, yeah.
another box now. But, and I usually sit and listen and try not to inject too many questions, but I said, okay, wait a minute. So if I'm at LA Fitness and I'm in the women's changing room, you're telling me it shouldn't say women and men, that you should be able to, and he absolutely said, that's right, that shouldn't be.
Well,
So that is the kind of discussion that took place that was just mind-boggling to me.
Well, we're about to wrap up, and I just want to also mention that Lieutenant Governor Dan Patrick appointed you recently to chair the Senate Select Committee on Cybersecurity.
Yes,
And I want
yes,
to congratulate you on
Thank
that.
you.
And I want to also, because we're wrapping up, it goes so
Yeah,
fast.
there's so much, I know, so
It
much.
goes so quickly, but
Yes.
I want to thank you, Senator Nelson, for
Thank
being here
you.
and for all that you do for Texas throughout your career in the Senate. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I am honored to represent this area in the Texas Senate, and I still enjoy it.
Great. We're lucky to have you. Thank you very much for watching.
Yes.